We begin with some breaking news coming in from the United States. For the first time, the United Nations Security Council has voted for a call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The United Nations Security Council has passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza after the U.S. refrained from vetoing the measure in a change from its previous position. The text also demands the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. The body had been at an impasse since the war began in October last year, repeatedly failing to agree on a ceasefire call. The move by the U.S. signals growing divergence between it, which is the body, and its ally Israel over Israel's offensive in Gaza. Let's now talk to our correspondent, Susan Teherani, who's joining us on the line. Susan Teherani, good to hear you. What does this resolution mean, and what does it mean for the U.S. abstaining?
So the text demands the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. It's also calling for a quote-unquote immediate ceasefire in Gaza. This is after the United States abstained from vetoing this measure in a change from its previous position. So the U.S. abstained, but it calls for this immediate ceasefire at least until the holy month of Ramadan. But Eric, what's interesting is that we are hearing now from the Times of Israel that the National Security Advisor of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had threatened to call off the visit of his senior aides to Washington, D.C. We know that the defense minister is on his way to Washington if the U.S. did not use its veto to block this resolution today. So we see this rift really with the Biden administration and the Netanyahu government, and whether or not it was this issue that prompted the U.S. to abstain and not veto, but also not go along with this resolution at the same time. The problem the United States has, again, and Israel has as well, was that it does not outright condemn the October 7th attacks against Israel that Hamas committed. So for now, there is a resolution. We'll have to see how this resolution pans out and plays out. The word permanent ceasefire was replaced with immediate ceasefire. That's something apparently that the U.S. side was okay with, because the permanence of this ceasefire is not clear at this point. It's just until the end of the holy month of Ramadan.
Susan, you have been attending some of the press conferences being done by the United Nations, and like I say, the body had been at an impasse since the war began in October, repeatedly failing to agree on a ceasefire call. What do you think the American public will think about the U.S. abstaining from vetoing this latest resolution?
So we've been talking about this together, Eric, a few times, and that's the fact that the Biden administration's policies regarding Gaza and Hamas and Israel has been to play it somewhere in the middle, moving away from that all-out support from Israel. And the reason for that was because they noticed that there is a majority in the Democrat Party, far left, that really supports Gaza and does not want to see the Biden administration supporting Israel. And they saw this in the polls, and this is really a threat to Biden's re-election campaign. The problem with this is it's not clear whether this abstention, playing it in the middle, will satisfy that group, and it definitely won't satisfy the Israeli side either. So what does this mean for the U.S. position? And the Biden administration, you know, is really like a game of chess at this point. Are they going to satisfy anyone or no one once again?
All right. If you're just joining us, the United Nations Security Council has passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza after the U.S. refrained from vetoing the measure in a change from its previous position. The text also demands the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages. The body had been at an impasse since the war began in October, repeatedly failing to agree on a ceasefire call. And I've been talking to our correspondent, Susan Teherani from New York. Susan Teherani, thank you. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.